On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, Episode 3, Temporal Edict, right after these sponsors who we have no control over.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is the Matthew Carroll.
And I am Ann David C. Robertson. I know that's not the correct article. But it was funnier somehow to me.
Yeah, Ann was funnier. You were right. I should have said Vendor. I
don't know what you're talking about, but all right.
All right. Apparently it's been a few days since you watched this episode. Vendor. That's why
it has.
Yeah, I just rewatched it just because this does not stick as well as a regular episode of Star Trek for me. I really have to kind of rewatch beforehand. Vendor,
I forgot. Yeah, I remember
Vendor was
Vendor
the big
now.
guy who they were fighting.
And that was the line that made me laugh. Where he was like, "I like to read."
Yes, there were a couple really good ones. The one that not only made me laugh really hard at the moment, but me and Alyssa have been quoting all week. Like it made her laugh out loud, which the show has not done up until then.
Right.
And it was, "I'm going to bathe in your blood."
It's such a weird thing to laugh at.
It was just so good. I love the brig. It's my favorite place. And next time I'm going to let you die. I'm going to bathe in your blood. That was good.
Yeah, it was all right.
That was kind of hot. Okay, so my main disappointment with this episode / I was glad it wasn't, maybe, I don't know, is I saw Temporal Edict and I was like, ooh, they're doing a time travel episode already?
Right.
Or like we're going to find out what, this area of Star Trek, what they think about time travel, or like that I was excited by the name, and then it was just about work efficiency.
Right. And it was kind of fun to kind of push into the whole Scotty idea of buffering in time.
Yep.
Or, that's fine.
I thought you would like that. I thought that you would like it.
That's cute.
This is a direct reference to Scotty, and I thought that was cool. And they don't mention him, although they do mention Miles O'Brien.
Which was weird.
It was weird, and it was funny.
I was like, I'm not sure I get the joke. Is it that there's no reason for him to have been the most important person in Starfleet ever?
I think the joke is supposed to be sort of random. Like, yeah, if you think about who's the most important person in Star Trek, a lot of people could come to mind, I mean, Kirk, of course, Picard, even cases could be made for things like Janeway and Seven and characters that like bridge divides between worlds. But there's no... Like, I can't make a case for Chief O'Brien. You can even make a case for Jules or something because he dealt with
Julian?
Section 31. Julian. Call him Jules. Did anyone else ever call him Jules? Or is that just me making that up?
I think his dad called him Jules, maybe.
Yeah.
And he was like, "It's Julian now."
That's
or something. But
okay. Well, I'm just being weirdly petulantly his dad. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot. You could make a case for almost anyone in Star Trek. Miles O'Brien, I feel like is like the least that you can make a case for that.
Not even an officer.
Yeah, not even an officer.
Enlisted man, Chief O'Brien.
Yep. It's a pretty good joke. Pretty good joke. And just to have a big golden statue in the park, or a holographic statue. Also, Borg in the Academy.
Yeah, in the far future. Yeah.
Yeah, the far future is, yeah.
Yeah, the far future of this strange little animated pocket universe that has no real connection to anything.
Yeah, I do feel like with each episode, it is it still hasn't done anything that much more extremely different than the events of Star Trek. It's being very caring with the timeline to some degree, but it is just like, I think I'm being less and less interested in the storylines, but it's making me laugh, and that's all that matters, really. I've just got to resign myself that this isn't going to be the show that I go to for good time travel stories,
I don't know. I had a friend who was like, dude, Chief O'Brien is the most important person in Starfleet. Like, what are they going to do in Picard that makes that make sense? And I'm like, nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
That's not happening. Like, don't start
reading into this too much. That's no good. That person's going to be sorely disappointed.
I was like, with Discovery and Picard, Matt and I did that on the Star Trek Universe podcast. We were woefully disappointed because we wrote way better storylines than what happened.
Yeah, and that's fun stuff. And I'm never going to stop doing that. That's what's fun about podcasting about it. But like this show, that's not what's fun. This show, like basically, we can get on, and I've said it before, but I don't think podcasting about comedies is great because it's like you either over-examine the comedy, like we just did with the Miles O'Brien joke, or you're just saying how funny it was, and it's kind of like it's just hard to. So basically, what we can, I don't know. Podcasting about comedy is hard. Comedy is also hard, but podcasting about comedy maybe harder.
You could do that wonderful thing that those guys that I can't remember the name of who do that Rick and Morty podcast do. Where they sit around and like
exactly
try to act like philosophical douchebags.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Not doing. They try to overanalyze every joke, and sometimes they're just wrong about. Sorry, me and Dave have listened to the same Rick and Morty podcast, and we found it awful.
Yeah,
they're constantly like, trying to examine why every joke is funny, and like they're wrong half the time. It's like, ugh.
Well, it's just so great because it's like it's great with that broad appeal, but then when you look to chapter 3 of the God Problem,
yeah. Oh, what did you think?
Thank you.
Did you watch the? Well, okay. Let's talk about this episode before we talk about the trailer for next week.
Sure, that sounds
probably
reasonable.
Good. I liked this alien thing. The whole little. The joke she makes. What am I, Kirk? What is this? The 2260s?
Yeah,
that was really wonderful. I'm surrounded by spears.
I did like when she was like, you know, we live on a spaceship. You're not going to die from a harpoon or from a spear wound or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair to the episode, that line did make me laugh.
Yeah.
I laughed when I saw it in the trailer.
The trailer, yeah, I did too. Yeah, so there's a lot of, and I liked the crystal thing. Mm-hmm. Crystals when they're in the background, you just see a guy come in and go, crystals. Yeah, the show is written well for the comedy. It really is. I really honestly can't ask for too much more from this show. Well, yes, I can. I've said what I want more from the show, but I like the comedy is about as good as it can be for just the comedy's sake, without adding the existential dread of Rick and Morty, which is what I want, but I don't think I'm going to get.
I don't necessarily want the existential dread, but I do want
deeper examinations.
One of the things I love about Rick and Morty is that they are willing to go to dramatic places and emotional places and actually, give us well-rounded characters, amidst the absurdity. And I would love to see that, which, to be fair, at this point in Rick and Morty, 3 episodes in, they weren't doing that. Like, they caught me off guard 6 or 7 episodes in with that shit.
Yeah, that's totally correct. And I'm hoping that will happen. I feel like I'm judging it on a hard line because Rick and Morty is so good and this is so similar in style. Mm-hmm. I want more out of it than it's given me. I remember you showing me Rick and Morty, and I watched a few episodes, and I hated it. Like, I was like, this is so broad and bad.
I wasn't terribly into the first episode. And, Jason from DC On Screen, he just kept, we were living together at the time, and he would just keep playing it in the background because he was just in love with it. And the more I kind of just watched it, I was just like, holy crap, that's actually pretty clever. Wait, look at all that stuff in the background. And I haven't done that with this show. So, I don't know. Maybe there's a whole bunch more to it that I'm not seeing because I don't have time to sit and watch the same episode 4 or 5 times.
I think we're catching most of the stuff we're supposed to catch, honestly. I'm sure there's some little nods. I feel like most of the, like you said, the stuff in the background, the stuff in Rick and Morty in the background is often like close examinations of different kinds of sci-fi. Like things will be going. This so far has just been Star Trek references, which is the point. So I can't really complain. Like it's fun and it's the point, and it's like I'm having a good time when I'm watching it, and it's Star Trek content, you know. So I'm in no way upset about the show or anything. It's just I would not mind a little more depth. So anyway, I'll try not to say that every week,
Right?
Because even when the depth comes, like it won't be enough, you know. Like at this point, because I like Rick and Morty so much, and I want that to be how it's like. I'm looking for it almost too much. Like I don't know that they would ever really be able to please me.
Yeah.
I see there is no pleasing you.
Smoking a pancake. I'm doing the Breaking Bond podcast with Bethany. I've come to the realization, I should say, that me and my group of friends, we all referenced Austin Powers way too much. Almost an absurdly unhealthy amount.
Yeah. That's fair.
But I guess that was the thing when we were coming up.
It was definitely the thing. And like, I do think that we tend to, it's not like we're saying shagadelic baby.
No.
We're referencing things like mostly Goldmember, honestly. I think like I reference Goldmember more than probably any other.
Well, my guy is Dr. Evil.
I love Dr. Evil.
But like part of that is, you know, the fact just knowing that he's also Lorne Michaels.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's super funny. Super funny that he would call even just like calling your ex-boss Dr. Evil and making him famous, making his voice famous for being Dr. Evil. That's so good. Such a good joke in itself.
And like Lorne Michaels is such an interesting guy. You know, I've watched and listened to all these like podcasts and interviews with him, and he is totally Dr. Evil. But like, then you'll see somebody like freaking Bill Hader do a Lorne Michaels impersonation. He does the voice, but he's like got a completely different take on things that Lorne Michaels does that Mike Myers never even touches.
Right.
And it's just like, so like, oh God, he does do that. Like, like the little embarrassed thing where he like kind of plays with his eyelid and looks down when he's like name dropping somebody. He's like, I was having lunch with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, dude. It's so funny that like, I feel like that guy gets lambasted more than anyone else that's like not super famous in his own right, you know. Like if you didn't, if you're not a big fan, you could get by watching SNL for years and never even really know who Lorne Michaels is, you know. Just a name in the credits.
Right.
You know, if you're a comedy fan, you've probably heard him interviewed a few times, things like that. But like, super funny to hear that, because he's just like, he's this weird figure in American comedy that's like a antagonist and a friend of like all the best comedians.
Yeah.
And like they've both loved him and hated him. He like gave them their career and he was their hardest boss ever. It's just like, and so they all have crazy impersonations of him, and they all have it's just such a weird thing. It's such a weird way to be famous when you're not famous for much except for like in your persona is not famous for much except for so many comedians doing impersonations of you. That is a weird thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Pretty great. It's pretty great. Like
absolutely.
Especially since he is such a, comedy lover and comedy fan. I gotta imagine that's like,
I mean, he started out in comedy. Like he was doing his own sketch shows like in Canada or some shit.
Oh, yeah? I'd be interested to see him actually working. That's cool.
You can find some of it on YouTube. He's got a terrible mustache, but yeah.
That's great. Okay. Other things I thought were funny in this episode, the adjudication geode. Really, all the crystal stuff was funny.
See, this is one of the problems with this show, or one of the confusing bits at the very least for me, is that when you mention stuff and bring it up, and I'm reminded, I laugh. I'm like, yes, that was great. But while I was watching it, I'm like, I don't know what it is.
Are you judging it too much while you're watching it?
I don't think so.
Because I think
I'm too tired to do that.
Oh, well, that's the other thing. You might just be too tired. That was my first impulse. Maybe just try to watch it when you're really wanting to watch something.
That doesn't exist.
I know we tend to.
I'm just tired.
Be in a rush because we podcast and we this and that. But yeah, you just try to enjoy it because I do think it's funny. I've laughed out loud a lot. I've sat down to watch it with Alyssa every week. She doesn't really watch Star Trek with me normally, but since this is only 22 minutes or whatever, it's one that we can actually sit and just enjoy. And it takes no knowledge to. I think she actually probably likes it more than Rick and Morty.
That's interesting
because she's not looking for the same like existential dread and deepness that I am, and so a lot of times that stuff just kind of like rubs her weird. Mm-hmm. Like she wants something that's just funny, and I want something that answers the deep questions about life and is also funny.
She's like, can I not watch a cartoon that makes me question existence before I go to bed?
Yeah, like me and you think the fact that the cartoon is bold enough to question existence is a cosmic joke in itself. We get that. Mm-hmm. She's like, why is the guy so sad? Like, I just got off work in a hospital where I'm dealing with COVID every day and trying to like keep people alive, and I would like to come home and just laugh at a thing, you know? Mm-hmm. Me and you, we don't have that same experience. Oh man, her being working in the hospital every day, I'm constantly having to hear about people who had horrible accidents. Mm-hmm. She's an occupational therapist, and so she deals with like people who are like brain injuries and stuff, and so it turns her a little bit into like everywhere she looks, she sees tragedy. She's like, oh, there's a person riding a motorcycle. I saw 6 people in motorcycle accidents last week, you know, like, yeah. Oh, there's a person doing this. Oh, that they're clearly going to die. She has this like weird confirmation bias because she sees so much tragedy, and then like that really affects her. So when she watches comedy, she doesn't really want. That's just not what she's looking for. She doesn't really. She used to watch a lot of dramas with me, but she doesn't really like to do that anymore. She likes like fantastical dramas and comedy. Like that's what she wants to watch when she's not dealing with the tragedies of life.
Interesting.
The Boimler effect thing was funny.
It was okay.
I guess.
I was annoyed for him.
Yeah, I was annoyed for him, which is nice. It's nice to feel like we're in his shoes a little bit. Oh man, just in general, Vendor was great, and the classic reversal of the leader of the tribe being not the smart one, and the big oaf being the sort of gentile.
Gentile?
I was trying to say genteel.
I'm not Jewish.
Sort of the genteel one, being the big oaf. That was fun. And at the end, he's like, "Why don't we get a judge?" And the guy's like, "Ooh, we could do a death race. Start building crystal cars."
Yeah, his little like, was pretty great.
Yeah,
I didn't laugh. But I did sit there with a big dopey grin on my face the entire time that everyone was freaking out and Boimler was just like getting everything done. He was like, "This is great."
Yeah,
that made me happy. For some reason.
That was fun. Yeah, I like Boimler. You know, I really like Boimler, and I really like the female protagonist
Mariner.
as well. Mariner. Yeah, I like them both a lot. I really like all the characters, and they all feel pretty fleshed out for the most part.
Yeah.
I like the cyborg man, who I don't know his name.
I don't remember it either.
I got nothing. Rutherford. Thank you. What did you think of the Kirk reference of the shirt off, fighting with his double fists? very Gorn-tastic action, except sort of modernized to the point where it actually was believable. He's like doing the same sort of moves, though. I felt like almost like they had actually sketched out some of those actual roles and stuff.
Oh yeah, he was totally doing Kirk moves. Yeah, it was fun.
That was fun. I liked it.
I was intrigued by the notion of Ransom and Mariner maybe getting it on at some point, maybe finding some sort of because that's how it'd have to start and then it would be with those two. It'd have to be like meaningless sex that accidentally turns meaningful, like begrudging relationship.
Yeah. I totally see that.
Wholeheartedly looking down on everyone who isn't them because they're awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely think that they're laying groundwork there for sure. And the only thing the trailer for next week, they mentioned Q and the Traveler. Did
they really?
Did you? Oh, you didn't hear that?
I guess I didn't watch it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, trailer for next week. They do mention Q and the Traveler, but they in a very weird way. One of the characters in the trailer says, I'm going to Ascension, which is I guess like meditation class type thing. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys says, "Ooh, like Q and the Traveler," and then it shows her in some sort of like meditation ascension class or something.
I think I did see that.
Which I don't know. That's weird and interesting. I mostly am interested in the travel. I mean, obviously I'm interested in Q, but I'm interested in like if they actually play with the ideas of the Traveler and ascending or whatever. Like, I don't know, man. Like we know so little about that one episode happens and then like you just never hear from. That's the Traveler again,
Yeah, and the next time you see Wesley, he's like in the background with a Starfleet uniform on. You're like, well, wait, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. It's weird.
You went with the Traveler to like evolve and see the universe, and now you're back in Starfleet at a wedding
without saying anything. I guess just you wanted to include that actor in the wedding, so you just did it.
Well, they had a scene where he spoke, but I don't think it shed any light on what happened with him.
That's what I mean. You're not saying anything about the fact that you've been on a transdimensional journey.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting because this is, this is years later. I wonder how much we'll get. I wonder if we'll get anything like any insights into the Traveler from this little cartoon show. Since we never got it. They did the original animated series, they added to the mythos. And so like
they did.
I'm still looking for that from this show as well, even though, I think they're a little more scared to do that than they probably were when they made the animated series.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, when they made the original animated series, it was, 1973, and they were like, there's never going to be anything else.
Yeah, they were just trying to make a thing. But it's cool that they went forward and used some of those things, I
tend to walk a line emotionally where, like, I really want Star Trek to be what Star Trek is for me, and I want it to do the things that I want it to do. I want it to, walk that line, but then like all of the Star Trek that I really love from the original series to Deep Space Nine, they pretended that they were somewhat unencumbered by what came before, and they were just making a thing. Like TNG is where, like, Wes Roddenberry passed away, and they kind of felt that burden. Michael Piller felt that burden to continue with like certain rules that Roddenberry had laid down from TNG's era, because God knows that wasn't there in the original series. People, crewmen had conflict all the time. They were prejudiced. They talk shit about Spock every episode.
Right.
Like, shitty Vulcans, man, you heartless bastards.
Green-blooded bastard.
Yeah. So, like, TNG had that relatively new concept that human beings were so evolved that they couldn't have conflict with each other. But, aside from that, it was just like, they weren't going like, well, we have to make sure we do this, this, or this because we did this in the original series. They were willing to move beyond it and be like, well, this is what Star Trek is now. And so I would like to see them do that here with any new series they're doing. But then again, I still want my old Star Trek. So it's a tough. I'm one of those where I'm just like, let the artists do what they want, and I'll say if I like it or not. But
yeah, I feel like we need to do a news and feedback soon, or news episode or whatever. Because
I mean, probably
because I heard this week that, so we'll probably talk about it on a non-Lower Decks episode, because probably some people aren't making it this deep into a Lower Decks episode, but like we shouldn't have. But
hey, I mean, if we have a good conversation, we have a good conversation.
I know. I'm just teasing. It's a joke.
That's up to the listener to decide whether it's good or not. Hit subscribe, kids.
Yeah, I heard this week that there's apparently some news out that like they have confirmed that they are going for episodic television with Strange New Worlds. Like they said there's still going to be some season arcs, and there's still going to be like overarching stories told, but like it's going to be an episodic TV series where you can watch any episode and enjoy it, and not have to be watching everything. Which my preference is some balance there, and so maybe they'll strike a good balance, I hope. But the good thing, the thing I'm finding now that I'm getting a Star Trek series I really want, which is something like, like Discovery and Picard, where there's an overarching story being told, and like DS9 was, something I do find myself missing is bigger concepts being talked about on a single episode.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when they do like a season of Discovery, there will be some sort of bigger ethical or metaphysical question being asked, but it takes them a season to ask it and to answer it or whatever. Right. Instead of, it's almost as if instead of getting like this sort of overarching story where they still have, it feels less densely packed. It feels like they have just taken an episode and stretched it over a season instead of continuing to have good episodes while telling a bigger story. I like the balance of things like Lost, where you've got every episode feels like its own narrative and movie.
Right. I think something that, like, I really like serialized Star Trek, but I think one of the things that the current regime has not mastered is they do exactly what you're saying. They will like have some big like metaphysical like conundrum, and they'll play it out over a season. But to me, in my brain, it's like tricking me into feeling like there should be an actual resolution, and not just like wind up being like some big like rhetorical like, I wonder which way was right. You decide, audience. And like I kind of feel like they do that, and I'm like, no, I actually want like real storyline. I want real stakes. I want to know what happened. I want to know what should have happened, what the consequences of your actions were here and here and here. I want to know where Prime Orc is. You know, I want to know like all the connections that you're alluding to. But like old Star Trek would do a thing where like from the original series through TNG, and somewhat on DS9, but where they would have like an episode that introduced a problem, they worked the problem, they got out of the problem, so we know where our characters end and where that problem ends for them, but they are still, whether it be through a captain's log or by, you know, conjecture on the bridge or you know what, or in Quarks or wherever, be like, here are 3 pieces of dialogue that make you consider that we might not have made the right decision, and it still somewhat haunts us. Mm-hmm. And next week we're going to a different problem, but you guys can talk about this. And like I always liked that. I just wanted more of an overarching like thing, and that's what we got with like the Dominion War and whatnot, DS9, which is why DS9 remains my favorite.
Yeah, mine too. And the thing is, even though the Dominion War is a very well told and interesting overarching story, it is at every moment of it, like every episode has its own arc. You know, I can think of so many episodes in those few years. You know, the episode where Nog loses his leg, the episode where Nog is in recovery and like living on the holodeck, the episode where we follow a Klingon warbird while Worf and his son are on it, in the pale moonlight. There's just so many great episodes that are still great episodes while being this overarching story. And I think you're right. They have not mastered that in the newer incarnations yet.
Though to be fair,
I
don't know what that is.
It's a reference to Letterkenny. They always do that when people say to be fair.
I hate that show.
Oh, dude, you're missing out.
I'm not missing out. I've watched several sketches now, and I hate it.
It's so good.
It's not. It is awful. But to be fair, not many people, not many shows have mastered balancing on that tightrope like DS9 did.
Agreed. Hey, I really can't think of many at all, to be honest. Lost is one that for the most part does that until the later seasons. I think it gets a little more serialized and less episodic toward the end. But the first 3 or 4 seasons are really well balanced. I think at some point Lost decided that this show is about the overarching story, and we're not picking up new listeners. We're just trying to tell the story for the people that are watching. You know?
Well, they were desperately trying to end the show at 3 seasons, like the showrunners were, and it was so popular that ABC wanted to keep running. They wanted to run it for 10 seasons. So they were just like stretching things out and doing this episodic television and driving themselves mad until they finally convinced them to like, please God, let us end at 6.
Yeah.
And then once that happened, they were like, cool, we can plan out a story and actually tell an episodic, a serialized story that we want to tell and be done with it. We know where we're going now. So, I mean, yeah. Good old art versus
commerce,
money. Yeah. Commerce. That was the word I was looking for. I was like, money, whatever.
Money. The thing. Capitalism. Okay. Well, that's all I got, I think.
I think so.
That's about all, man. Thanks for doing a podcast with me, man. It's good to talk to you at like 7:30 in the morning. It's weird that we're both awake. Yeah, man.
Sometimes bodies do things.
Well, I do want to mention, I've mentioned it last few weeks, but my Indiegogo campaign is still up, and for the new Star Trek album. So if you're listening to this and you're a Star Trek fan, which that's pretty likely, it's just a Star Trek Universe podcast, or you're just a big Matthew Carroll and David C. Robertson fan.
That's right. It's still Indiegogo. It's not Indigo gone.
What? Oh, it's because it's still going. I get it.
Right, it's still going.
Okay, so yes, not Indigo gone, but you can go to strandedpanda.com/new album and check it out. There's a new t-shirt design that I'm really freaking excited about. Looks awesome. And that's going to be it's one of the perks you can get is the t-shirt, and also the double CD that is 22 songs, 20 of which are going to be based on Star Trek, and then it's got 2 secret tracks. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to share it with everybody. A lot of you heard it on the podcast, but I've actually been working on it still for another 3 or 4 months now, and it's sounding really good. And I'm super excited. All the new instrumentation, and it's gonna be really good stuff. But it does need your support so I can keep making geeky music.
That's right.
So
go support it before Andy Dunn went.
back before COVID, it was I basically was spending all of my own money to make the art that I want to make. But now that money isn't coming from anywhere anymore, so I basically have to do the Indiegogo things to fund so I can keep making geeky music. All right, well, that's our podcast for today. We'll be back soon. With more Lower Decks, actually probably really soon because we waited way too long to do this one.
Yeah, it's okay though.
Yeah,
because we have busy lives and this is a hobby.
We do. Yeah, that is truth. So, Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.